In 2015, Rocksteady gave us Batman Arkham Knight, the conclusion to their iconic Batman Arkham series. Never before have we seen open world superhero games at such a large scale, with a fleshed out world, well established characters, and a unique story that rivals some of the most iconic Batman comics out there. And now, it's all over. Gamers and comic book fans alike had no idea what to expect for the next superhero game. We genuinely thought that we reached the peak of superhero games with this series, and never again would we get something as good as the Arkham games. That was until E3 2016 when Sony dropped this.
People see me and think they're safer. But it's not really me they're seeing. Probably for the best. Knowing everything hinges on a guy from Queens sounds as scary as it feels. No pressure, right?
That's right, we were getting a Spider-Man game. Nobody knew what to expect of this game, but everyone was excited because we were getting another superhero game and it was arguably for the most recognizable one of them all. The big question on everyone's mind was whether or not Insomniac would deliver a game as good as the Batman games by Rocksteady, and we wouldn't get an answer until 2 years later. However, it was definitely worth the wait because what we ended up getting was arguably one of the best open world superhero games of all time. It was on par with, if not better than, the Batman Arkham games, depending on who you ask. The game's success led it to being a contender for Game of the Year in a year where we were blessed with some phenomenal games. Although it understandably lost out to God of War, it would make a lasting impact for years to come. In this review, I'll be going over what makes Marvel's Spider-Man a great game as well as a great superhero story. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Hi! Is this the flight to Newark?
I told y'all in my Spider-Man 2 review that I'm going back in time. The story for this game follows a Peter Parker that's been Spider-Man for 8 years, which is honestly a breath of fresh air for many Spidey fans, myself included. The past 3 live-action adaptations of Spider-Man have all been of him in high school, with Tobey being the only one we see go through college. I love the opening sequence for this game because immediately we see something that we didn't see much of in the Batman Arkham games: the consequences for the person behind the mask. At the very beginning of the game, Peter has the choice of paying the rent or stopping Fisk. Obviously, he chooses to go be Spider-Man, and it results in him getting evicted from his apartment and having to dumpster dive to find his belongings. Peter is a good person, but despite that, he's the one that ends up suffering the most. Whether it's getting evicted from his apartment, watching his mentor lose himself and become a villain, or having to make the hard decision of saving the city at the cost of his aunt's life. The emphasis on Peter's personal life in this game goes to show you that Insomniac truly cares about the character and understands what makes Spider-Man so popular: his relatability. Overall, the story for this game was a playable Spider-Man movie. It has all of the action and emotion to expect from a Spider-Man story. However, I will say that villains such as Rhino, Electro, Vulture, and Shocker felt like they were just thrown in there to get a Sinister Six going. They didn't really contribute anything else to the story besides being some extra villains for Peter to fight. Scorpion played a small part in the story when he poisoned Peter, but that whole sequence really went over Peter's relationship with Otto, if I'm being honest. Martin Lee and Otto Octavius, on the other hand, had a more personal connection to Peter, which we saw throughout the story, and it made their boss fights feel more impactful because of it. If I'm being completely honest, I think Acts 1 and 2 could have focused on Lee, with Act 3 being about Doc Ock, since throughout Acts 1 and 2 we were able to see Otto slowly make that transition to becoming Dr. Octopus. That aside, I really like the story for this game. If you want a more detailed video essay on what makes this game such a great Spider-Man story, I recommend watching High Top Films' video on it. The big takeaway here is that we get to see how Peter's personal life is affected by him being Spider-Man, the hard choices he has to make, and the sacrifices that come with it. Now, on to the gameplay. The combat in this game is similar to the rhythm-based combat we saw in the Batman Arkham games, and just like the Arkham games, there's a wide array of gadgets at your disposal. While in combat, you have the focus meter, which can be used for finishers or healing, and you also have a suit power, which is like an ultimate ability, and you unlock more suit powers with the more suits you unlock. I'm not sure why they didn't bring these back, because it was a nice addition which gave unlocking suits another purpose besides cosmetics. Some of the suit powers were associated with the lore of the suit, like the Iron Spider arms, and others were just fun additions like the quips. Speaking of suits, there's a lot in this game, and even more in the remaster. There's something for everyone, except for Amazing Spider-Man 2 fans, despite it being the best live-action suit we got up until that point. There's also a ton of combat, traversal, and gadget upgrades in this game that are unlocked with skill points or tokens. Skill points are earned by leveling up, and tokens are earned from doing activities. The only problem is that there's many different types of tokens, which sometimes made me feel like I was forced to do a specific activity in order to unlock something I want. Now I gotta talk about the swinging because this is a Spider-Man game, of course. Although it's very smooth and very satisfying, it's also very forgiving. Players who played the original Spider-Man 2 game were quick to notice the lack of a learning curve for the swinging, which made it less satisfying. If I'm being honest, you could literally just hold R2 and the game would do everything for you. Not a problem for the casual player, but those who really want to show off their swinging skills would have to wait for no swing assist in Spider-Man 2. There's a lot of good things to say about the gameplay, but there's something I didn't like which I want to talk about. The boss fights. In terms of the story, I like the boss fights against Otto and Lee. However, from a gameplay perspective, all of the boss fights had the same strategy. Web up the boss, spam dodge when they attack, maybe throw some shit at them, and then press triangle when the prompt shows up. No boss fight really stood out to me in terms of how to fight the boss. Not even Taskmaster, because he just felt like a worse Mr. Freeze boss fight. To be fair, it's hard to compete with that one. And don't get me started with them MJ and Miles stealth missions. Thank goodness they fixed these drastically in Spider-Man 2 and didn't include them at all in the Miles Morales game. I get the purpose of having these missions to show the player just how powerful Spider-Man is compared to an ordinary person, but I think that most of these missions would have been better off as cutscenes, to be honest. On the bright side, there's a ton of things to do in the game. I mean, you have to do them if you want the tokens. The backpacks in particular are filled with lore and nods to other comics or games, like the drawing with the balloon. The trophies are also easy to get since the majority of them are earned by playing the game. It took me about a week to platinum the game, and of course I ended the trophy grind by paying my respects.
Hey, Uncle Ben. Miss you. Doing my best to make you proud.
That's going to be it for my Spider-Man review. All in all, even after 5 years, this game still holds up as one of the best superhero games out there. Thank you, Insomniac Games, for putting so much care and effort into this game, and into this character. You are proof that good game developers are still out there. It doesn't matter how long we have to wait for another game because we can trust you to release a banger, and that's exactly what you did with Spider-Man 2. If you haven't already, check out my Spider-Man 2 review that's also on my channel. That review along with this one was fun to record and edit, and next up on the list is Miles Morales, which I think I'm also going to have a lot of fun working on. For now, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. More of these review videos will be coming soon, but I'm also open to other suggestions in the comment section. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.